This is my life, connecting with family and friends through music for the past 30 years. I'm Angel Adesma, and this is As We Go Along. So, welcome to As We Go Along with Angel. This afternoon we are going to the home of Steve Krakow, aka Plastic Crimewave. If you're wondering why I seem a little down, it's because this morning we got the sad news that our favorite singer and I guess you could say a friend to us, Mr. Damo Suzuki of Can and the Damo Suzuki Network, passed away at 74, which is ironic because that's the year I was born, 1974. We weren't going to do this episode today. Steve was, like me, despondent and bummed out. But I'm glad that he changed his mind and wanted to invite us to his home and have our conversation over bagels, peanut butter, and 2 different types of jellies. But yeah, I'm just I need a moment here to collect. All right, let's do this. Steve, my man. Hello. I got stuff. First off, to walk into Steve Krakow's place is to step into a landmine of art, music, media of all shapes and formats. I've known Steve Krakow for as long as I've been playing and making the scene in the Second City. He is one of the hardest working artists I know, from fronting such bands as Plastic Crimewave Sound and Plastic Crimewave Syndicate, The Unshown, organized Division Celestial Guitarchestra featuring 100 guitars playing in the key of E. Described by Julian Cope as a future retro freak, Krakow's apartment is as if a comic book and record store exploded and all the pieces falling into a perfectly organized, chaotic feng shui. So I brought this out. I'm going to show this right here. And if you remember this, I decided to bring one of my prized possessions, a personalized Steve Krakow caricature of me. I think it was after I was playing with Robbie Sky, and you were, and hit your little booth or whatever doing photos. I'm like, get this drawing of me. Like, and this was after post gig, so hair was big. And I'm like, give me a third eye. Normally on As We Go Along with Angel, we like to cook a meal with our guests, but Steve wanted to keep it simple, and it was just too early in the day for him to eat. So he made a trip to Skokie to get us some delicious bagels from the New York Bagel and Bialy Company in Skokie, Illinois. Since 1965, making the best damn homemade bagels. And their own homemade chive spread. Look at the way he spreads those bagels. And the coffee to go with it. Excellent. Now, let's get ready for some geekdom with Steve.
Oh, so they were, and then him. And it's like, wait, who's he? Who's Addison Al DiCarlo? He had this other band afterwards called Missoula that did 2 records. records that are kind of like Mountain Man cock rock with like proggy shit going on and stuff like that.
Now, so Bangor, is this the same Bangor, what were they called again?
Bangor Flying Circus.
Bangor Flying Circus. They were in that Electra Glide in Blue, or the movie with Robert Blake, or there was a Illinois.
Medora is. Good call. Medora is. The band they evolved into, which is just like, I think it's a different drummer. I don't think it's that Michael Tasia guy or whatever. Medora, they are in that movie because they were both managed by
James Greco.
Yeah. Gorshia. Gorshia. Yes.
James William Gorshia.
Yes. The Svengali of Chicago.
Yes.
Of sorts. Although, and the band Chicago.
Right, but then who was so talking about Chicago, there was that Devil Dogs hot dog stand, and it was run by a manager from Chicago, but not the same one, right? It was like a...
No. I can't think who it was, but Yes Are the Fun was who Van Halen. And there was a lot of Van Halen stuff in that place too, or whatever. Yeah.
Well, definitely the Chicago Gold Records were there for sure. So.
Yeah, right. I used to love to just wait in there for the rain, and if it was raining, I would just go in there and wait, for the bus, and just kind of check out all it's Jerry Katz's guitar. Wow, cool. Whatever.
So here we go.
All right.
Thank you.
I could carry this since you're busy.
Oh, I should get the angry.
Oh wait, and you brought PB&J.
I brought PB&J, so.
All right, I'm coming through the hallway here. You saw some of the bad taste, tacky stuff in the bathroom, right?
Yeah, I saw the new kids.
Yeah, this was my brother lived here, and we tried to just put as much tacky shit in the bathroom as we could.
Okay.
My He-Man Master of the Universe collection up there. Maybe a little dusty and falling apart.
I had all these as a kid, and then my mom,
they either wanted a garage sale or something at some point,
Right. Well, in our case, it's like they were given to people. Oh, there's Joe Cassidy. That's so cool that you got to, they sent you were able to go to Ireland to.
I shocked the hell out of me, that happened.
Yeah.
That was just very crazy.
Because I obviously Butterfly Child, very familiar with that record.
Yeah.
And I was like, and he did other stuff, right? And besides his own music.
Guitar and session work and Assassins.
Yeah.
He just did a lot. Even his own family is sort of figuring out how much stuff he did now. Because I'll be like, oh, do you know he produced this band? And they'll be like, oh, well, I actually did.
Oh, wow.
I was in Chicago.
Right. And then I saw this shirt. I think the last time I was
this
here.
This has been hanging here a long time, much to some roommate. I think one roommate took it down. It's like, I can't deal with this shirt hanging in the middle of the kitchen hitting me in the face. I'm like, all right, fine. But then I think it went back up. And funny enough, in Japan, when I went one time, a guy was wearing this shirt. And I was like, holy shit, this is exact. And look, it's based on the Who a Quick One.
I was going to say that.
That's like Daltrey, though, but he's on drums.
He's on drums.
And then they kind of gave him a mullet or something. I don't know. They messed with it and they made it brown, but I think they took it from a Quick One.
Yeah, especially the melty guitar. And that looks like Antwistle, but he's a lefty.
Yeah, they tried to Beatles them out or do something weird to them. But yeah, and then I for a long time. This was the Japanese psychedelic door. It's seen better days. Gotta admit, things are getting pretty frayed on there.
Sure. There's the ISB.
Yeah. That's been there a long time too. Some of this junk.
Gem. Yes.
More junk in here. I guess you saw this room already.
Oh, yeah.
Took over this former roommate room. Did have a guy build this wall shelving here. This was when I was at the high of my freelance game. I was like, you're gonna come in and build this shelving and get all my VHS and paperbacks.
Oh wow.
And he put those cassette racks on the wall too, so I could finally I think I need
a rock and roll
archivist intern. I
had one
for a second actually via Art Institute, and of course the kids like that, shocker, right?
Yeah.
Even offered him I'll find out, I get you that college credit or whatever you get full credit or whatever.
There you go.
Wow. Pretty much the same vibe, but I do keep some of my more precious items.
Oh yeah, can you show us some?
All right.
Show me at least one or two precious items.
Oh. My original Eno, Here Come the Warm Jets promo poster. Never seen another one.
No.
To get this weird thing in Japan. Somebody painted a Stars poster.
Which was the band featuring Sid Barrett, Twink, and Jack Monk.
Very good. Very good.
I know my.
Ding, 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 ding. Very good.
And
Who did that in like colored pencil or crepa or whatever they use for that? That's just been on my wall for. That's a Gong, kind of a limited Gong promo.
Oh, nice.
Too, that I don't think I've ever seen anywhere else. Yeah, a couple of GD stores. I bought the elevators on the street in Lakeland or somewhere when I was a wee lad. I was like, got a couple some old posters. I'm like, oh, I'll take that one right off your hands.
Oh, and of course, Bobby and the Outlaw featuring Marjo Gortner.
One of my favorites.
And we have to watch that the Marjo movie because he was a preacher.
Oh yeah.
But he was also a musician, an actor.
Oh, I don't even know. I guess that's kind of
yeah.
the T area over there. If you know you want to get a little screen of some of the Mr. T items that's been there with
Mr. T.
Oh, Barbarella. So, what does Mr. T mean to you? I guess
he was just like an early, pop culture obsession. I guess,
because he's kind of come up and that's a cool Sid one.
Yeah, a friend did that painting. It's sort of stuff.
Kind of looks like it's either like Paul McCartney or Stu Sutcliffe.
Yeah. I didn't always love it, so maybe it kind of got stuck back in that area or whatever.
Oh yeah.
This was an art school painting. This is what I was doing in art school.
Oh wow.
I found this in the bushes. And then I just drew teddy bears on it and signed it. I was like a Dadaist, man.
There you go. That's all you needed, right?
Ready-mades.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, in Champaign, you had to sort of fight this battle of like what was art all over again. It was like very fuddy-duddy. It wasn't like Art Institute where it was all like conceptual.
Oh yeah, actually, I think. Oh yeah,
that's been there a while.
I think I've seen that here before, and actually, this came up recently on anniversary because January 6th. So you had Ginger Johnson's African Drum Band, Way Good Ellis in the Zone, Rich St. John.
Which even I had not heard of most of that shit.
Yeah. And
and there's your brow.
Oh yeah.
I totally ripped off how he put his name on the side of the guitar. I completely ripped
Hey.
100% because Plastic Crimewave is a nice long name that you can kind of put on the side of a guitar like that.
Oh, and there you are.
Oh yeah, there's a little.
Oh, I was hoping you would, because obviously when
that's the one I got signed by Damo. I need to little dust on there, but
because I think because when he came and hung out and performed, there he is. Wow.
Had to get a few things. I'm pretty sure I got like my monster movie signed. I mean, now I'm like really nerdy about that shit. I'm like, I'm gonna get this shit signed while I can.
Yeah.
Not, like I'm ever gonna sell it or anything. Or like,
Yeah. Oh.
This is out of control right now.
Oh, yeah.
This is out of control. Getting to those records at the bottom, boy, is it not happening right now.
Because then you gotta pull everything out to get to.
Yes.
Oh, is that a Manson original?
Yeah.
Whoa. Phil Kaufman still alive. He put out he was, I guess, the first label that Manson ever got signed to. He didn't get it to Brother, but he got to.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Whoa.
Yeah, you don't even want to go back there. There's an old. That was who Damo remembered. Hillary. You remember her?
Hillary. Whoa. Yeah, I think.
She was on Division, like right across from Jinx.
Yes. I do remember Hillary. Actually, yeah. She worked at Jinx, right? Or she just a regular?
Yeah, she was very regular. She lived like literally right across the street on Division or whatever. But yeah, Damo totally remembered her. He was like, my girlfriend. I'm like, yeah, she had like short hair, but she wasn't exactly like mine. But yeah, he definitely. I don't know. Oh yeah, that was kind of special. Dave Allen.
You know.
That out to me. Like he played at Shubas.
Okay.
And like yeah, you could kind of like. His thing was called the University of Errors. He would I think you gave him like $10 and he would give you that up, fill that out for you. And
Esquire.
I'm like, yeah, you gotta put Plastic Crimewave. So he did that. We had a mutual friend, so that was kind of like my little in the sort of like, I wish I'd interviewed him. I couldn't remember anything about anything that he did. And he was kind of a dick. He was disappointing, actually. Yeah. I'm a big fan. I really like the 60s stuff he did, like right after quit the Moody Blues and before he was in Wings,
he had his own, put a bunch of singles.
He had his own singles, and he had this thing called Benny Lane's Electric String Band. That was supposedly the first orchestral rock thing, pre-ELO. So I was kind of jazzed to ask him about that shit, because it's really underdocumented. He couldn't remember anything. He couldn't even remember there's one guy in the band, he was in like Matthew Southern Comfort. He was in a few other bands.
Yeah.
He went nuts and fucking killed his mom and like a couple people. He couldn't even remember who that guy was. And I'm like, you don't remember that? Like you would think that that would kind of like stuck with you.
I think you had something. Oh gosh, somebody else. Didn't you have a thing with similar encounter with Donovan, Vashti Bunyan?
Well,
he kind of like didn't remember, or was just kind of like,
Devendra had told me that. He told me that he brought up Vashti to him, and he didn't remember. And he was all like aghast, that he couldn't remember. But when I met him, he was like he was playing Milwaukee Fest. Yeah. And he rolled in late, and he his makeup, I don't know, like his hair was kind of like old lady dyed blue, and he just wanted to hawk his new book where he claims that he invented psychedelia and invented folk music and invented everything, and he just kind of shilled. It wasn't like a real interview, It was just like, all right,
yeah.
But then his roadie, True would have loved his look. He looked like a British biker, basically. He had the sawed-off denim jacket with the t-shirt underneath. Kind of a little bit of a mullet, and kind of looked like a hard ass, and he was a British guy, and I was like, do you have an old band? Do you look like you kind of guy had an old band? He's like, yeah, you wouldn't have heard of them. I'm like, try me. Try me.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, I was in the touring version of Half Sashed in the Colored Coat.
What?
I was like, what?
Come again?
Come again? He was like, oh, who is that crazy producer guy? I'm like, Guy Stevens? And he's like,
yeah, crazy, yeah.
Oh, yeah, produced The Clash and The Hoople and really fucking legendary dude.
Yeah. After some time soaking in the visuals and the stories and the bagels and the coffee, Steve and I were finally ready to sit down in his grooving living room and have our little conversation over coffee and bagels. Check it out. Well, thank you, Steve, for having us at your home. Before we got here, obviously we heard the sad news about our good friend Damo Suzuki passed away 74, which is the year I was born. So normally I have questions about how we met and everything, but I just want to ask you, what were your first memories of Damo Suzuki when you first met him?
I first met him, I think it was 99 or 2000. I interviewed him when he played that House of Blues show with Michael Caroli. And I don't even know how I pursued that, if I got in touch with someone at House of Blues, or I don't know what, because had you jammed with him yet at that point?
No, we had.
No, okay. I
think this was his first time in Chicago, or maybe I missed that tour. How was that show?
Actually, I thought kind of amazing, because I am a huge Michael Caroli fan, and kind of hit it off with him. He was amazing. I mean, okay, so I'll say to my own detriment, I kind of screwed up in that when I interviewed them, they stayed at Rock and Roll Days Inn on
Diversity.
Yeah.
That's
so I went over there to interview them, and they kind of put me in a room or something, and I thought I would do that thing kind of like The Wire, Invisible Jukebox, or that Jukebox Jury thing where you play them songs and they comment on. Right away, Damo was sort of like, I don't really listen to music.
he's like, I only listen to my music. I don't really have anything to say about music. So it basically took him out of the conversation. I was like, no, you know, so whatever. But he was so sweet and everything. And, you know, Michael had more of the answers. And, you know, I played him everything from like Pharoah Sanders to like James Brown and shit. He had really amazing, like, astute comments and stuff like that. And kind of a heady guy. But he was also like, you know, me and Damo we were the voyagers of the band. We were the explorers of the band, i.e. the younger, you know, maybe traveling the spaceways guys, where the other guys were sort of classically trained and
30-somethings.
Yeah, funny, you know, trained by Stockhausen and, you know, and all that, jazzers and all that. But so yeah, and then, you know, flash forward to, you know, I saw him with you a couple times, and then I played that show with him in 2007. He actually remembered me from that experience. I'm like, you're not going to remember this, but but he kind of more remembered my girlfriend at the time. He's like, you had like mod girlfriend, you know? And I was like, yeah, yes, I did kind of. Or she had shorter hair, you know? Yeah.
Damo loved women.
Yeah, he did.
I think when we first met Damo, and that was 2002, when we played with him at the Empty Bottle. And I will never forget the first time we met him, because we were on stage sound checking, and then all of a sudden the door, like if you know about the Empty Bottle, the door to get from the outside off of Western Avenue, you can just see people coming in and out. And he came in, and the sun was shining behind him, and it was just like this, almost like this very dramatic lighting effect, and just like it's like, there's Damo, and we're just playing just kind of improvising as we do. And he came up to the front, checked us out, and then came and shook our hands, and we just immediately had a connection. And George and I ended up spending, like, because we had all this time to kill between before showtime, so we ended up hanging out with him. And I think
Empty Bottle has very early sound check times. To this day, it's still, you get a lot of time before that show starts.
I mean, for me, it's hard just trying to make a sound check at the Bottle, especially if I'm coming from the suburbs.
Yeah, at 5 o'clock or something like that, you know, and then you play at like 11. But, you know, still, God bless Empty Bottle.
Hey, yeah. But yeah,
I was at that show. He hugged about everyone in the audience afterwards.
In the audience, he loved us, which I was like very moved, because he was like, "You guys are it. That's what I'm talking about. You know, free music, improvise." I'm like, oh my god.
So he'd really been doing the sound carrier thing at that point, or was that sort of like the beginning of that?
That was, so we figured it out. So 2002, when we met him, that was when he made the decision. I'm going to do music I think he was doing it mostly as a kind of like a hobby, I guess, at that point, and he was keeping a day job thing. But then, 2002, he was like, I'm not working job. This is my job now. This is what I'm going to do. So, and that was that trip.
His quest began once again. It really did.
Yeah. And then of course him coming to the States at that point. I mean, he was he was gambling with coming to the States, not having work visa, which I guess that made him into kind of like more of an outlaw gypsy musician, you know, kind of trying to be under the radar. But unfortunately, it was post 9/11, and but yeah,
it bit him back. Eventually,
well, and that's, you know, flash forward to 2003 when we played with him as his backing band and at the Fireside, and that was I mean, that was a really cool time. But that night we hooked up with a promoter or a booker for a tour. He's like, I want to get you and Damo on this tour in 2003. It'd be 3 weeks, summer gigs. We were super excited. We had a super group. You know, it was Defender with Matt Lux on bass, and this, God, I forget her name, but she was a Scottish woman that was living in Chicago playing keys. Who she knew Damo, and so she was going to be part of that band. But anyway, and then
he got busted.
He got busted in the same place he got busted before.
Yes, Detroit Airport.
Yep.
Yeah.
Tour canceled, and then, you know, that was. But I mean, it took us a while to get over that one. But
I feel like I was devastated when I heard about it, and I was, not even playing. I just wanted to see it.
Yeah. But
still not as devastating as the one that before the pandemic he was supposed to come. And that would have been the last hurrah. I mean, maybe it wasn't meant to be, and he would have made him sicker, or would have like compromised his health more or something to do that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I was gonna play that one, and
I remember that.
I was so bummed when it didn't happen, and then just today I was really feeling. I was like, wow, we got robbed of that opportunity to see him again. And I mean, the first time I played with him, I felt like I could have walked off the stage and just been like struck by lightning and died, and like with a smile on my face, and just been like, okay, that happened. I mean,
yeah. No,
I mean, I've been a Can fan for. I had them all dubbed on tape from somebody in the fucking 90s or 80s or whatever. Late 80s. I can't remember what it was, but I.
Well, how did you hear about Can, or how did that come?
I guess it was college, so like I guess I started college in 91, and like I think I had a friend that was like, he was like kind of an industrial guy, but so like we had bands we could sort like Throbbing Gristle, Camp, like we had these bands that we could sort of agree on that were sort of in between our worlds, and he would play me like Coil or something. I'd be like, whoa, this is some pretty heavy, weird stuff, but like we could agree on Can, and he might have been the first one to play it for me, or I even remember though in high school we had a Rose Records in my hood in the burbs, and I remember going through the cutout bins and seeing Can records, and I liked King Crimson and I liked Prague, and I was like, these look interesting, so I that and Hawkwind, I remember their records always were like, these look like something I'd like, right. But I maybe making the jump, and I know Delay 68 was actually one of the early ones I got, which was, Malcolm and even Damo, but
yeah, did you, so I was talking about this with Athena, but so who was the first one, which of the Can singers did you hear first? Was it Damo or was it Malcolm?
See, it's debatable. Future Days is the first one I like totally bonded with, like that album entered my soul or something like that. So that was the first one. So I want to think that was the first one I heard. And again, I just had a tape dub from somebody, and I can't even remember who it was I actually taped it from, but got a lot of play. Yeah, that tape dub.
Well, the first time I ever heard Can, and this was also early 90s, 91, 92, was WNUR. Somebody, and I used to listen to the after midnight because I couldn't sleep, so I would tune into 89.3, and it, depending on who was the DJ, it was always some really cool stuff. And I heard some DJs saying, "Oh, we're gonna have a Cannes festival," and I'm thinking, "Oh, like soundtrack, like from the Cannes Film Festival."
Oh yeah, right.
That was, and I'm like, this doesn't sound anything like. I mean, it sounds very like cinematic, but it's like, what is this? Sounds really modern. And then finding out, oh, that was Can from 1969, and I'm like, that's what really kind of like opened me up to Can. It was like, this was made, in the like 60s or the 70s, but it doesn't sound like it came from that period. And I'm like, okay, I'm hooked. And Malcolm was the first one, I will admit. Like I tried Future Days, and I don't know if I was ready for it yet. It just very, I mean, different styles. I guess I was very punk rock.
Yeah.
In the 90s, and that Malcolm Mooney era was like, very punk rock, but obviously that changed.
More aggressive, and then sort of Future Days is sort of cosmic and spaced out. Even has a little bit of, reggae rhythms a little bit to it and stuff like that. Maybe that at first I was like, but so spacey and all the just flowy sounds and stuff sort of coming out of that record as a young head. Myself probably that hit me. But that said, I mean, Monster Movie was so huge for me. God, because I think I heard there was a UK band called the Faith Healers with a TH.
Yes.
And they actually covered Mother Sky. I don't know what year that was, 91, 92, something like that. And I was like, I really like this. Oh, that's a Can song, you know, or whatever. And I just don't think that many bands had covered Can at that point. But that might have been the first time. That could have been, yeah, that was an early sort of experience.
I mean, when you played with Dom, obviously you're used to improvising. I mean, but did you feel any fear, or were you just kind of like, I guess.
Oh, definitely some, for sure. I mean, this is like my hero or whatever, and I was probably playing with way more qualified musicians than myself. Like you were saying, Johnny Herndon, Johnny Machine, who I knew way back from when he was Johnny Machine and Poster Children.
And then Precious Wax String things, too.
Yeah.
I saw them. They were the Chili Peppers.
Wow.
In '89.
Well, Poster Children, I went to school in Champaign. They were like hometown heroes. They were just like, they ruled the roost. You know, them and Little Brother Band Hum.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Ruled the roost in the grungy days.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Poster Children recorded by majors as like the next Nirvana at one point, as many were around that point, you know, because they had sort of self-depreciating songs that kind of, you know, got crazy and stuff. Anyways, yeah, so overqualified band playing with Damo, but yeah, I remember he cooked for us, you know, his Eurasian soul food, and which I don't think as vegetarian I could eat too much of, but I had the pumpkin soup.
Pumpkin soup was excellent.
But I remember kind of being timidly like, what are we gonna do? And he was like, no, you know, we can't discuss it, you know, or whatever. And I was like, okay. So that's how we're gonna. Okay, I'm so cool with that, but at the same time, it was kind of like, I don't know if like instructions would have been more stressful, or not having instructions would have been more. You know, if like you got to do this at this time, that's not generally how I roll, anyways. So you know, I feel like once we got up there, it was cool. And actually, listening back to it, I'm like, actually, that was kind of a cool set. We kind of did everything Can did, in not as well or anything, but like within that set, it went to like, as we were saying, like space reggae at one point. It went into like kind of dissonant at one point, like, you know, some Tago Mago stuff, and I was like, But while it was going on, it was, you know, that wonderful thing of time and space sort of not having meaning that we all want to have happen. I think.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I mean.
How did Defender come to be his backing band that time?
So we had played with Damo in 02, and it was a great time.
But how did that get hooked up?
So there was word that Damo was coming back in 03 to New York to do this month residency at the Knitting Factory, and you know, George, my brother, and I were like, oh, wouldn't it be great if we go to New York and you know, maybe try to get in on some of the playing action, like play with Damo, because he was looking for musicians to play this residency. So I'm like, well, you know what, let me hit up Damo. I just emailed him. And I just said, hey Damo, I don't know if you remember me. And this is another thing with Damo. I would always sometimes preface, if I hadn't talked to him for a while, I'm like, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but I'm Angel from Chicago.
Yeah. I think I would do this too as well. Yeah.
And I remember the first when he responded back, because I'm like, hey, like, we're thinking about coming to New York. Maybe is it cool if we could maybe jump on stage with you guys? And he wrote me back. It was like, you Angel from support band from the City of Winds, is what he said.
Wow.
And already he's like doing the Damo wizard action on us, like.
But wait, had you played with them already?
Not backing him up.
Oh, you were open.
So we were. So was Damo with Cul-de-sac?
Oh, that tour.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah. In 02?
Got it.
So we had. I mean, but he already saw us in action, so he knew like, okay, like I can get with these guys. And got it.
And that's the Jay Ryan drawn poster.
Yes.
Seen it. Got it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, somewhere.
I think one of your friends posted.
Yeah.
The frame, a nice framed poster of that one, but so it was simple as like, hey, I remember you guys. You guys were great. If you want me to perform with you in Chicago, I can just. It was basically just a plane ticket, and I think. Was it $200-300?
Yeah, 2-3
first fee, and and a place to stay.
Damn.
It was just a simple, because people would ask me, oh, like, how did you work with Damo?
Yeah.
I asked him and we paid him and he came.
That's like Maria's story. Like, how'd you come to work with Steve? She's like, I told him I'd pay him to do some work for me, and he said, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
It's really easy, you know. I like paid work, and actually, I think I got to draw some cool. I got to draw Pee Wee Herman. I got to draw some cool stuff for her, actually.
Oh, okay. There you go.
I was like, you know, people I wouldn't normally get to draw.
There you go. Yeah. So, and then he came. He stayed at my parents' house.
Wow.
Wheeling.
Wow.
Which, that was the house that I at first heard Can. So that was kind of, you know, like in my bedroom on the radio listening to NUR and be like, oh, and then soon after finding the Can records, listening to it like nonstop, just blasting that. So he not only is in my home, he's hanging out with my parents and seeing him with my dad because they're about the same age, just about. I think Damo's a little older than my dad.
Yeah, they're about the same age for me too.
Same generation, but obviously different life paths, you know.
Exactly.
So, but that was surreal to see and beautiful. Like, oh wow, there's my dad and Damo. And
I did have him over here, but it wasn't, you know, which was kind of surreal because I've listened to those records so many times over here, and he was definitely sort of like, wow, you know. Like,
yeah. I mean,
because the club's just down the street, so we all kind of met over here beforehand before we went over there. But again, nothing was discussed about what we were gonna do. I did
find out one thing about Damo, because you mentioned his, you know, not listening to music. It was like, I remember him telling me, it's like, the only thing I listen to is my own live recordings.
Yes.
And then he had I forget that. I need to find the piece that. He played a piece of music, a classical piece, before our set, and that was like, I think he had a CD of it. It's like, this is what he would like to play beforehand. But the one thing we did have a commonality with was Fela Kuti, because we were listening to NUR after we were so, and
he dug that,
and he was like, Fela, that's
nice.
Already I'm like, okay, like he does like other music, but the one funny thing that happened that day at my parents' house, and you know, keep in mind it was, you know, my parents, my brother, my wife at the time, and you know, granted I didn't get gussied up or cleaned up beforehand, and I was, you know, hadn't shaved, so I was, you know, it was a little raggedy, but whatever. My mom started to give me a hard time in Spanish in front of everybody, saying, mijo, ¿por qué no cortaste tu pelo? Why didn't you touch your hair? Why didn't you shave? You know, just, and I'm like, oh,
you got shamed in front of your hero, basically.
Basically, and then I think I just turned to Damo and just kind of like, oh, I'm sorry, and he just said, that's okay, I have a mother too. And I'm like, oh, okay, so. Yeah.
I think he just liked to connect with human beings, you know. He said in the doc, he's like, you know, playing with all these. It really made me understand his crusade, like more as far as like, why would I want to play with the same people all the time? Why not have it be a new experience? Why not interact with all these cool people just on a human level and see how they live? And shows him playing with the little kids and stuff like that, and just like, you know, what a guy, you know, like super unique. In about every single way. And then, you know, even more, I kind of go back and I'm like, wow, he's Jehovah's Witness for a while. He stopped doing music for a long time. He went into business. He had a lot of chapters. You could never put him in one box, you know, of this. I mean, he'll even refer to his hippie days, you know, and you think that's kind of him overall, but complicated guy. In a good way, I think, you know.
Well, I love how he would always say, you know, I wish I could remember, but I was stoned.
Yes.
This is the part of the show where I ask you.
Oh, okay.
These are the questions of the show.
Questions.
So, I guess the big one is, what are your memories of us meeting?
I know you said this before, and I'm trying to think, when was it? I feel like your presence in Chicago has been, you know, and in my world has been so ubiquitous. I truly cannot remember when we first met or what brought us on. It just seems like you been around for as long here as I have, I feel like, don't be hurt, but I cannot remember a specific introduction.
I mean, because when did you come to Chicago? When did you
I
actually
moved
move
here in
here?
'95.
Okay. So I was kind of, and I was still living in the burbs in Wheeling with my folks, but I would come in and out of the city. I think I definitely remember meeting you in like the early aughts when you were at Reckless.
Okay.
Because I think that was your day gig.
I was there 99 to 04.
Okay.
Yeah.
And of course, I'd go in there, when times were prosperous and I'm buying records, and when times were lean and I'm like, hey, and
selling them.
Exactly.
Well, I sold in high school. I sold records to HipCat.
I think you told me before that when you were at HipCat, so that's the record store I used to work at, that you got less than
a paltry sum. But people would do that at Reckless all the time. They would be like, that's it, But I probably met a lot of people there and didn't really think, or maybe people that I saw around and then they'd come in regularly and I could sort of be like, hey, I've seen you at a million shows or something like that or whatever,
But then from then on, I definitely saw all the incarnations: Plastic Crimewave Sound, Syndicate. Did I see what was your band? The Unseen?
Unshown.
Unshown. I don't know if I did. I think I was at a Chicago taping when you were performing.
The Unshown was?
Yeah.
That was the one that was filmed by Wild Chicago.
And I was
so it was a double filming. It was a meta filming of a filming going on that time.
Okay, let's go. Coming up in 5, 4, 3.
Tune into Chicago and you'll find a spunky hostess with a wisecracking rat surrounded by gleefully untrained dancers grooving to an obviously lip-synced local band. And as if that's not enough, sometimes there's a surprise guest.
Oh my gosh!
Hey, you're Mia.
And you're Will.
And tell us where we are.
We're at Chicago right now, and tell us where you're from.
Wild Chicago.
All right, well, welcome to Chicago.
This is like an interview squared. Now tell me this: you are normally in a rock band, right?
And I think if I need to find that clip, there's a scene when
I got it.
Oh, where the camera is like, the cameraman's like whizzing past the crowd, and I go like this.
You might be, I have the Wild Chicago because he talks to Ray, bassist of the time, and he's like, "What's the song you're doing?" And he's like, "Trip on Evil."
It's lip synced.
Have you had any practice for this?
My old band was on here once, but we had no vocals.
What song will you be playing for us right now?
Trip on Evil.
The lip syncing wasn't that tough because you really were just making noises.
It's very tonal sort of singing.
And he's like, "You think that's appropriate for the kids?" And Ray's just like, yeah, whatever. But I always loved that it was a kid show. And yes, for anyone who doesn't know, Chicago is a long-running institution in Chicago. Over 1,000 episodes, helmed by the man Jake Austin of Rocktober magazine, The Goblins.
Also another great
big inspiration to me. Big inspiration, Renaissance man. I was like, how is he? Actually gave me my first ever magazine cover I ever drew was for Rocktober.
Oh.
So that was my first big, ooh, I get to do a magazine.
And what I'm trying to remember the cover because I kind of vaguely...
It was in 2000.
Okay.
It was in 2000 because it was like the year 2000 issue, and I drew all these people as superheroes. I actually have 1 million copies if you want one.
I will take one. Yes,
right.
I know that one. Yeah.
I got to dress Sammy Davis Jr. as a superhero. We went and interviewed the Flaming Lips in their hotel room because they were sort of like just coming up, and then it was kind of funny on the way there. We were sort of both like, do you like their new stuff? No. Do you like their new stuff? No. Do you like their old stuff where they're kind of like a garage band? Yeah, all right, whatever. We had the weird talk on the way there. But so I drew I think Wayne Coyne is a superhero on the cover, and I think there's a Misfit too on the cover.
Okay.
I think maybe as well.
So yeah.
Anyways, yeah.
But Rocktober, that was the magazine that introduced me to so much, including the Monks. I will have to thank them for Jake Austin for, and I've thanked them several times over the years, but yeah, I was just thinking back to so when we were hanging out, I would see you at shows, and I definitely remember us having like some pretty heady like late night chats, usually at the Bottle after a gig, just kind of like, which I always appreciated. I always like the fact that you took time to just hang out, even if I was a little like inebriated back when my drinking days.
Oh, I probably was something too.
Sure, but there was a few times I remember, and I think in one particular night was at the Whistler when, because you're also a DJ around town.
Not as much these days, but yeah, I used to do a lot.
I mean,
that's part of my new I get up early regimen is maybe not staying in bars till 3 a.m. For getting that much money. That's we'll call that getting older.
Yeah, getting old. Well, and
I still do them sometimes. I still will DJ sometimes.
Okay.
I'm at in a week. I'm DJing at Fitzgerald's.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. If there's
got asked, so that's again. Ask me, maybe I'll do it.
Yeah. But there was one night at the Whistler where this has probably happened to you, where people are like, "Can you play the song for me?" And I all of a sudden I kind of took on the role of your bodyguard, because like I'm like standing next to you, we're just chatting. I'm like, "Oh, you're gonna play that? Awesome!" And then this woman's like, "Can you play some Cheap Trick?" And I'm like, "Hey. Leave him alone. He's got his own set." And you're like, no, I got it. And you had,
I was gonna say, Cheap Trick, there's a chance. There's a chance I could have that, actually.
But yeah, for some reason I just felt like I got to protect you from these.
I felt it with other people, like, someone starts going through their DJ box and you're like, no, you should ask them before you do that, because I don't like when people really do that with mine. So, and I'm not that persnickety precious about this stuff, but.
Oh, let me ask you real quick. So, do you have memories of your band Plastic Crimewave Syndicate was starting a tour on the West Coast, and the first date was Missoula, Montana, which I happened to be in Missoula at the same time as you guys were going to come in, and I don't know if you remember anything about that particular gig.
I do, sadly. No. You were the bright spot of that gig, I'd say, actually, sir. You and your clan. We drove. That was the very beginning of our tour. As people say Midwest, you're not really in the Midwest. You're really more close to the East Coast. So to get out west to tour, which I've done a fair amount of times, but not as much lately, it's like you gotta get out there and you gotta go through a lot of nothing kind of to get there, if you will. Granted, I've played weird Idaho and weird places like that, but you gotta go through, to get to the West Coast where you want to play these shows. So we drove 19 or 20 straight hours to get there. And we kind of thought we would take a nap somewhere, and it's just everyone was moving around in the car and it didn't happen, so we just did it in shifts. So we were completely fried. If I'm not mistaken, on the way there I put the lock on the trailer wrong in a way that you couldn't get it off and get the key back into it. So we could not get into our crap. And we had to get that sawed off.
Right, I think I remember that.
Maybe that happened on the way. But then we realized when we got there that Jose had forgotten half of his drum kits.
His stands.
As the whoosh, feeling like crap, I did this stupid thing, and then stupid thing number 2.
2 hits it. And then I think I remember getting messages from Jose about do you know a music place around? And I'm like, I think I have no idea, but I got all sorted out.
Well, that said, we played with this band Mordecai, who are really cool, actually, and I kind of knew they had sent me their records before, actually, so they were good. And we we stopped at a record store ahead of time with this other guy who was sort of associated with that band, was like, hey, you're these guys, hey. So we were having an okay time, and I think the show went off okay because it was I never have encountered this anywhere else. It was a open mic for bands. So bands, a whole band set up and did like 1 or 2 songs, broke down, and then another band would set up and do 1 or 2 songs, which is a lot of work. It makes a lot more sense if someone get up there with an acoustic guitar and do a couple songs, next person. So it was like weird.
Yeah.
Okay, is there one of these bands playing for 2 songs that we could borrow drums from? Because the Mordecai band had like the Mo Tucker kit. They had like a very simple kit, and Jose needed a little more. So somehow we finagled borrowing a kit, and then later in the night in a different room, this sort of glammy new wave band played, and they brought a shit ton of people in. So we got a portion of that money. We got paid pretty decent because there was no one really there for our show, but then they were for this show, and they combined them. And then did I like draw your character again or something like that?
So you drew, because we were there for a wedding, and we wanted to give a wedding gift to the bride and groom, and we had a picture, and we're like, hey, can you draw this?
That was it.
Yes. So
and you probably, threw me a couple bucks for that, right?
Threw you a couple bucks.
Yeah.
But the part that you left out in the story. So we get there, waiting for you guys. So I think you were just on your way, and the band before you, which was like a blues rock band with a bunch of middle-aged guys. One of the guys came up to me, is like, so you're the manager of this band, right? And I'm like, no.
Oh, like you were the manager.
Because he saw me talking to you guys. I'm like, hey, like you guys need a hand. And so for the whole night, he's like, okay, so here's the deal. We need this band on stage. And I'm like, you should talk to these guys. And
so he basically wouldn't believe you that you weren't the manager?
I just exude this, like, I'm a manager. I work here.
You had that kind of Peter Grantish quality to you that said tough but fair manager.
God, I guess, or I just said, Mr. City, like,
yeah,
Mr.
right.
Showbiz, hey, guys. And, and all night he just like, you need to talk to your band, get your band on.
Because then he probably saw you talking to us, and that just sealed the deal that you were clearly our manager.
Yeah. So finally, I think, by the end of the night, I'm like, okay, I'm the manager.
Yeah, could you just pay me? I'm taking a cut.
Yeah, exactly. but yeah, and it was like at a VFW, and it doesn't happen very often, but I just being somewhere out of town and there's people I know from my home, my home city, and they're gonna be here. And that was a wild night.
That's always a fun novelty to sort of have those nights where someone sort of shows up at your show where you're like, hey, or being that person who surprises someone who shows up, at your friend's show or whatever.
So I guess that kind of leads into this question that I asked. So what was the most challenging time you had a musician, and how did you resolve it?
Wait, most challenging
time, like, I guess paraphrasing it, like, in your years of being a musician as well as being an artist and everything, was there ever a time where you're just like, you felt like you were your back was against the wall, or you just felt like, I don't know if I can get out of this, but then I got to figure it out? Did you ever have any moments of that, playing music or being a musician?
I mean, I guess I've had, the usual, like, been sick on tour, when all you want to do is just go home, I mean, I've definitely had moments, and it's like, how are you gonna, like, I mean, I remember warming up throat coat tea in a microwave at a punk rock club in Pittsburgh, because I had no voice at all, so I'm like, all right, is this gonna work? Oh, this microwave's not even fucking working. All right, it's gonna make lukewarm water, and I'm gonna pour it in this throat coat, and somehow it happened, and somehow we played that night, and it was a true punk rock place too. Yeah, I mean, other than touring life, which, I haven't done as much of, which there's definitely been, a lot of rough moments with, I think me and music have a pretty good, we've always gotten along. I don't also have, like, huge, lofty commercial concerns or whatever, I'm always happy to, like, I mean, I like releasing records and doing stuff like that, so that's important to me. I like playing shows with my heroes sometimes, which still seems to happen. Every once in a while you're disappointed by those heroes, who, can... But more often than not, I've been happy.
And kind of interesting you say that about, like, meeting heroes and being disappointed. What was a hero that you met that surprised you? Besides Damo, of course.
Yeah.
Like, that you were like weren't expecting to be like, oh, this guy ended up being, or this person ended up being really awesome.
I mean, see, I feel like that's actually happened way more than the opposite. Like, I don't know, we opened for like a reformed Loop, a British band Loop, and they're like the nicest friggin' guys and complimenting us, slapping us in the back. It's like pretty dark music, like 2 chords, like sort of apocalyptic, sampling Apocalypse Now and stuff like that. I think of them as a darker kind of band, but I guess they always say the people who play darker music are usually more well-adjusted than the people who play happy music or whatever. They get their demons out or whatever, but they're so nice, all of them, and I don't even know who added us on that show. I'm sure I had to harass somebody to get us on there, I don't think that one actually came easy, but I'm like, no, and we played with Helios Creed, Chrome, aka Chrome, and he had like totally, like, I saw him at Cobra Lounge and vibes were horrible. He was like yelling at his band and stuff, and I'm like, oh no, it's gonna be like opening for him, but he's a total hero of mine, guitar player wise, and he had like totally cleaned up his act and was super sweet and was like, actually, that show in Chicago is the one that made me realize how bad things were in my life, and I think he had given up drinking and he had given up all this stuff, and he was like a totally like upbeat guy now. When I saw him, he was not, at all. It was like very clear from the stage the vibes were bad. So yeah, that was sort of surprising.
Yeah,
as well.
And obviously you've gotten to meet a lot of people that you've obviously heroes and interviewed them. In particular, you're hanging out with Edgar Broughton. It was like obviously he was, besides great musician on Harvest Records and everything, and you got to meet the guy. I mean,
I never would have believed it.
Yeah, and Comus. Let's not ignore Comus.
They're the sweetest too. That was another one that sort of was like a weird random, like my old boss gave me Chris Connolly from at Reckless gave me Bobby's email from Comus, and I was going over to the UK, and I'm like, would you want to do an interview? And just met at the museum, and she was so nice. And then her husband Johnny, he plays with Comus now. He's from that generation, but I think he just thought maybe like I'd be like just like the folk guy. He's interested in these folk bands, but he's like, oh, I had a band, but you wouldn't be interested. And I'm like, oh, please tell me a little more. What was it? And they were like this noise rock band from the 70s called Red Square. They were sort of like a music and opposition band that opened for like Henry Cow and stuff, and that's just as deified to me as any folk thing. And I was like, really? And you only released cassettes, and I was like, wow. So just sort of hit it off with them, and really good people.
I mean, what's okay? So this other question I have, it's kind of like I guess kind of goes with like, what is your recipe for a long-lasting friendship? But what would you say is when you're approaching somebody like like an Edgar Broughton or even like Kevin Coyne, because you've spoken to him as well, and just like, what is your, when you're going in, what is kind of like in your mind? Like, obviously you got your facts down, but also like what are your
I mean, Edgar Broughton was a strange one because it was like I actually met him at a train station.
Oh.
So he actually said, I talked to him on the phone, like I got his number and I called him when I was in England. And I had a freelance job I was over there for a bunch for, so I'm like, I'm going to try to find all these people as I can on my own. And like, I thought he said, pancrustation, but he said Saint Pancras Station.
Oh, yes.
And I was like, what's a pancrustation? Crustration. And he's like, St. Pancrustation. And I'm like, oh, got it. So, huge station. Huge fucking station. So, now I know it well. But, so I met him there, and, like, he had just played an event. He had his amp on his back, and he had a guitar, and he still has this, like, DIY punk rock ethos where he's basically like, I will play your event for a day's wages of what your day's wages are, a meal and transportation. He has this like credo that he sticks by. So he had just done that, and he basically, I'm like, oh, that must be him. There's a guy with an amp and a guitar coming down the escalator, you know, and so, you know, it was like a little stranger meeting than like maybe meeting somewhere private or something. Maybe we just sat down at like a coffee shop or something like that, or in this station or whatever. But I think when they realize that you're like a genuine fan and you're asking sometimes these incredibly specific questions that like, you know, they're like, well, I haven't thought about that in years. They realize, okay, you're for real. You know, you're not just some, you know, doing this for some sort of glory or some kind of anything. They're like, okay, you know, whatever. And, you know, I'd like to think after interviewing so many people after all these years, I can, you know, generally try to get some of the ease before, you know, going into the deep minutiae or anything difficult or something like that. Like, I did have to ask him at some point, I'm like, so why'd you shave the mustache? And he doesn't have the mustache anymore. Right. He has this mustache, basically. A gaucho, if you will.
Okay.
And I was like, I just got it now, you know. And I would have asked that as my opener because I probably would have put him on like, what, you know. And he's like, let me tell you a story. And he's like, there was this guy in my town. He was a teddy boy. I came back to my town 20 years later. There he is still at the bar. He's still got his hair quiffed back. He's still wearing the raggedy old teddy boy suit. And he's like, I didn't want to be that guy. And I was like, all right, fair enough. He's like, I got to mix it up sometimes and not be known for one thing. Because it was pretty iconic, you know, like his look stash, you know. And I was like,
cut in a picture of Edgar Broughton.
There's actually a poster right there of him screaming. Right there in between Guinness Flint and that framed Frazetta. Right there. Yeah, there you go. You can cut that one in. So yeah, I had to sort of, you know, made sense. I get it, you know. Whereas I'm like, I'll probably never shave this fucking thing until I die.
Right.
You know, but that's more my take on it.
But you don't take that hair.
But I did kind of piss him off. No, not personally. So I actually ended up booking him in London.
Oh.
I was extremely indulged in this freelance project, and they were like, I get Lush Cosmetics.
Oh yeah.
I was doing these like perfume bottle designs. Actually, I have them up there. You could zoom in on those too. For a while, and they launched them. They're like, these are all your design. What do you want to do? And I'm like, well, shit, let's have a show where we have like people I like. So I booked Arthur Brown, and I booked Edgar Broughton, you know, and I booked Comus, all of them in separate events. But Edgar wanted cash up front.
Oh,
old school.
Okay. And
guess what? They didn't have it. They were like, oh, we'll pay him afterwards. And I was like, oh, Edgar, I'm really sorry they don't have it ready, you know, like, I swear we'll pay you afterwards. It could be a check, whatever you want. And he was like, okay. And then he left, and then he sort of came back 5 minutes later. He's like, no, you know what, Steve? I need it cash now before I play. And that was the deal. And I'm not going to play unless I get. And I was like, ooh, here's the punk Edgar Brown I'm seeing right in front of me. And again, not exactly my fault. And I don't get it. You know, he requested this. That was the deal. I was going to go run to the cash machine and do it. Luckily, somebody else did, you know, who was like repping the company or whatever. So, you know, I'm like, oh no, I'm pissing off my hero right here. You know, like that's always a moment where you're like, no.
Right, that
you know,
feeling of like, I'm disappointing this person.
It's also the transitive property of flakiness where someone else sort of like, and there was no one person who dropped the ball or anything. It just somehow didn't get done, and you know, makes me look bad. I'm like, anyways, that was my touch and go moment with Edgar Brown. But otherwise, very cool guy.
Nice. But yeah, what is your recipe? I mean, what is your recipe for a friendship? A long-lasting friendship. That's not a musician, or I mean, I guess, or just I mean,
mean, I guess it's probably... I mean, I have a lot of longtime friends, you know, who... I've had some friends for like 30 years that, you know, come to town, whatever, you know, whatever. You know, obviously, you know, there is this universal language of music, and having that bond between you is obviously something that is never going to, like, get old or something. So it does seem like a lot of the friends I have are fellow music lovers and makers, you know, and stuff like that. But I think at the same time, just... probably a number of things. I mean, nobody knows you better than someone who's known you for 30 years, you know, and if they're still your friend and they're still with you and you don't ever have to explain. I mean, I have just like a few friends I feel like I could probably tell anything to, and they're not going to judge me because they've known me for so long and they've seen me through ups and downs. And it's, you know, probably like any other relationship where if you've hung in there that long. But that said, it seems like friendships do come and go in life, and sometimes you lose touch with someone for like 10 years and they come back in your life, and it's like you pick up right where you left off and it feels completely natural. And then sometimes it's weird, you haven't seen a good friend in a couple months or talked to them or something like that. But definitely important in life. And you know, I mean, I don't think I could be in a band with someone who like wasn't my friend, you know. I know maybe that's like also what's kept me in the game so long, is that, you know, I enjoy doing it, and I'm not gonna like play with these people I don't like for what, you know, for this like fame that's not gonna come, for this like, you know, greater product that's gonna come out. No, you know, it's like you're doing it for the love of it, so why wouldn't you do it with people who are your brothers and sisters? You know, that seems like important, you know. Like musical chemistry is good too, but like human chemistry.
I mean, obviously you have a lot of connections in the city with a lot of different people, because besides music and art as well, and then of course your amazing, we were talking about fanzines earlier, the Galactic Zoo dossier, which you know, obviously you put a lot of work in, and I read about how it's all done by hand, so it's like so it takes a while, but you know, it's one of those things where when it does, something drops, it's like I'm gonna sit with this for a long time, and it's
been a while now.
Yeah. When was the last one that came out?
I think like 2016.
Oh wow. Yeah. So
I'm ashamed.
Hey, you know, I mean, this is, folks, this is like the process here. You know, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a while. All by hand.
I mean, they used to be these thin little Xerox things, and then they just sort of have grown and grown and grown, and I've like it's hard to rein in now.
Yeah.
You know.
But well, hopefully we'll see a new issue at some point. What do we have here? What advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
18.
And you were in the suburbs.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't think anything I didn't follow. Like, you know, don't let people harsh your dreams and tell you you're not gonna make money or living as an artist, and do something practical and blah blah blah. And I mean, luckily I always had a few people in my corner, you know, my mom, or like a couple professors in college that were sort of like more like junior ones who took me under the wing and are like, don't do this bullshit, come here, you know? Come here, let me show you, you know, like what's really up, and you know, and stuff like that. So I was lucky to have good people sort of take me under their wing, but it sort of, but you know, I feel at the same time I do think just follow your passion and you will be rewarded. I mean, maybe that's like a naive vision, and there's a lot of people who did and didn't, but you know, weren't rewarded. I mean, and what's rewarded? You know, is it fame and fortune and money, or is it getting to do what you love to do all the time, more or less? You know, and
that's kind of the reward. There is just the being able to continue to, and obviously people are hitting you up for work here and there, and yeah, I mean,
there's moments where you're like, why the hell am I doing this? And it seems like it's going to fall apart, but that's life too, you know. There's people who have 401ks and regular jobs and then their job is gone and they're, you know, like there's no real security in life and really about anything. If anything, the last 5 years have shown us that, you know, more than any. I just feel like, you know, I mean, yeah, I probably would have told 18-year-old me, don't get a job. Right. Or like, don't, you know, I mean, I did it for years. It's funny because it like, I worked basically full-time jobs from age 13 to 30, you know, or okay, obviously I can work full-time at 13. But I started part-time jobs and then went into full-time jobs, you know, basically as soon as I can and worked. And then, you know, when I hit 30, I got fired. I mean,
that's what happened? Or
I mean,
you walked out?
Yes.
But, so yeah, I mean, I do remember...
Best thing that ever happened to me.
I was going to say, I do remember when you made that announcement that you're like, I'm not working any more daytime, or I'm not working a day job anymore. I'm only doing my... And I was like, wow, that is heavy, man. That's great. I mean,
it's been 20 years. But I mean, it was sink or swim is what it really was. I mean, I just, look, I had a touch of unemployment for a little while,
sure,
of fraction of a record store pay, and then could keep sort of going a little bit on that, and it's just like, well, I might have to find one at some point, you know, or something like that. But I mean, I have regular freelance work in Chicago Reader and stuff like that, so it's like, you know, that's sort of like a job, you know, or whatever. But I mean, I don't know.
Obviously a job where you get to feature artists from, and that, we're talking about the secret history of Chicago music, which is, you also did a feature about our group, or our friends' group stations, which, and I wanted to ask a little bit about just the, I mean, your archival work, especially getting a lot of stuff out, like JT, and I'm blanking, JT4, like, which that in itself, putting that out is probably the best thing to happen in the city. And just having this, I mean, how do you find out about a guy like, I mean, I guess, how do you find out about a guy like JT?
That one, I have to admit, someone came to me with. I mean, there's a number of ways. I mean, sometimes I just find a record. Sometimes the artist gets in touch with me directly. Sometimes it always varies, you know. But this cat, Robert Manis, he was obsessed with JT4. He's his real historian, and he basically approached me with like all those singles and all that stuff, and was like, we got to do a thing. And then he went around and like slipped notes into people's doors and stuff like that in his old area where he lived. Did you know JT and stuff like that? But then, ironically enough, a guy sent me a tape out of nowhere. That last thing we did with Drag City, that double thing, the future. That was just a guy being like, "Oh, hey, I found this demo that JT gave us. Didn't you put out that record? Here, take it." You know, and it was like all this unreleased stuff. So it's weird how these things happen, as you know. I'm sure that stations thing kind of fell in your lap in a strange way too. Right?
Yeah,
so,
I mean, it was basically George working with David, and then you know, kind of like, oh, we got to play with Damo, back to Damo.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like, oh, well, I had a record produced by Martin Hannett, and we're like, what?
Right.
And then and of course, I pride myself in being like, I, you know, kind of know the obscure players in this town, or the former players, but this group was just like, I have no clue who they are, and there's scant.
I don't think I had heard till you guys came along. I don't think. I think you guys hit me to that one.
And that was just a fantastic journey, and the fact that you brought that long dormant story to the 21st century.
It's a good story, man.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll admit I don't even always absolutely love the music of someone I'm covering. It's just a good story, you know, but in this case, both. You know, it's a cool story, a odyssey of the, you know, recording and the band, and then just cool like, music too. I'm obsessed with all that.
And of course,
factory stuff.
And hardcore vegan chefs too, which is, I'm hoping to catch them at some point, because they just moved out to Tennessee. So.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But I've heard about their cooking. And the last question, and I think we might have covered it, but I just want to know, what was your first musical / concert experience?
Oh. Okay. Well, I have to give those a trifecta because I don't remember, like my parents would bring me to concerts when I was like a little kid.
Oh, okay.
And I have vague memories of seeing, you're gonna love this, The Association.
Ooh.
At like, what was the Chicago Fest?
Yes.
Taste of. Because I remember the dude with the hat. You know, I think he's Hawaiian dude in the band, and he'd wear like the big hat. I have vague memories of that, and the Beach Boys. I have vague memories of seeing at like Poplar Creek or something. But then the first concert I paid for to go with friends and not like my parents, and I saw all kinds of weird stuff when I was in like high school. I saw like Del Shannon in a bank parking lot in Schaumburg.
Ooh.
And the box tops I saw once, which could have been Chilton, like you know, in junior high. So like my parents would drag me to these sort of oldie shows. But then the first one I paid for, John Cougar Mellencamp.
Ooh.
On the tour. I believe, I don't know what year, and then closely followed, I believe, by Tom Petty with the Replacements opening. At Poplar Creek Music Theater.
That would have been a fun show.
Yeah.
Actually, Mellencamp, the question I always ask,
and honestly, I didn't have that much interest. It was just like, friends are going, I can go without my parents, you got a ticket, I'm going. I was like, yeah, he's okay. I was never like the hugest fan in the universe, but I was just like, you know, also it seems Midwest appropriate.
I mean, well, it's either, for me, it's like, if you were to put a gun in my head and say, Bruce Springsteen or Mellencamp, always Mellencamp.
You know what? It might be for me too. And that's heretical to a lot of people. Because you wouldn't really have a Mellencamp without a Springsteen, you know? It just wouldn't happen, you know? We all know he bit off that a little bit. But then the early Mellencamp, he's kind of glam.
Oh yeah, when he was Johnny Cougar.
When he was Johnny Cougar, he was on the same label as the Gizmos. Culture. And they crossed over. There's a Gizmo song written by young Johnny Cougar. So he, in a way, has more cred to me than... Though Bruce was in a couple weird hippie bands. There was one with, like, a really long name, like Dr. Finkelstein's Frozen, you know, whatever, like, kind of band. So he was in... He had some early bands, too. But, to me, Cougar's got a... And I actually hear he's a big record collector.
Okay.
Cougar, and a big glam head. But I also hear he's kind of...
I mean, there was the most recent tour he did where he was yelling at people to shut the fuck up.
Really?
Because they were, you know, either on their phones or like he's kind of I mean, what do you feel about, I mean, do you care if people are like putting the phone in I mean...
No. I mean, I'm not at a level where I would care in things, but we actually recorded in Bloomington, Indiana a couple times. And it was co-owned by John Cougar's lyricist. He's got a lyricist. Think about that.
So he's interpreting the Mellencamp mindset and then kind of like the Bernie Taupin of Indiana,
to write Little Pink Houses for You and Me, but I guess he's kind of a heady dude, and it was co-owned the studio also by Paul of the Zero Boys.
Okay. Another Indiana.
Yeah.
And Gizmos you mentioned earlier. Proto-punk. And that's the beauty about you, Steve, because anytime we've ever talked, it's like you figure out the connection between...
I like the connections, the minutiae connections, I have to say. But
as, you know, as a music fan, it's like, it almost kind of like, it adds to, because it makes... Now you start to see more context of like, okay, it didn't just come out of this vacuum.
Well, and people like to see these things in these little boxes of like punk or prog, and no way those two things could ever be the same thing. Like, actually they can, you know, like, I mean, things that you think would be just like completely diametrically opposed and music scenes that would just not have interacted at all, and they do. And I think actually what's great about Chicago is like, what I would call like the moment of a great music scene is when it's just like all these sort of people are like, is the music scene cool? And you're like, well, there's this little scene, this little scene, this little scene, but everyone goes to each other's shows and, you know, doesn't care if you're playing like noise or folk or punk or whatever, but everyone's sort of supportive or whatever, and at its best moments it just kind of felt like that, you know?
Is that a wrap? I think it's a wrap. Can I get a hug, Steve?
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
My
for having us
pleasure.
in your home.
Yes.
And I know this has been a heavy day.
Yeah, it's cool.
But
it was good to talk about him.
Yeah,
that was good. That was therapeutic. Like,
I'm glad. I was feeling that too. I mean, I was like, okay, like I could either just like cry some more.
I know.
Listen to Ken all day, but I'm like, you know what? If there, and
timing's so crazy with the movie. Just having watched that and done it.
I mean, was it meant to be? I would, I mean, do you think it? But one thing I will say before I go, I had one of my friends, Jack Geezer of Geezer Senior, wanted to thank you for all the work you've done, for bringing obscure, unknown artists to the forefront, and just the work that you do. So, and I just want you to know that we all appreciate you. We all, you are a treasure in this town.
No, you're really going to make me cry.
And just, get another hug.
Oh, Damo loved the hugs too.
Yes.
As we said.
As we go along. Thank you, Steve.
It wasn't a time until something got knocked over.
There you go. All right. Beautiful.
So we'll give you a free merch. Or maybe tamed, or I don't know. We just don't want my bass player to have a seizure. He's prone to seizures.
Thanks for watching as we go along with Angel, and thanks for coming into my world for a little bit. Now it's time to head back to yours. Until next time, we'll meet again.